If you really understand what being president of a university is, it's the #1 position in any state.
Remembering the life and legacy of the University of North Carolina System's first president, William Friday. Next on North Carolina Now.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.
William Clyde Friday's 92-year life began in Virginia on July 13, 1920. He may have been Virginia born, but Bill Friday was Carolina raised. Dallas, North Carolina was his hometown.
It's the perfect little town. The courthouse sat right in the center of town. There was the square right around it. Had its own little business community. We had 3 barber shops, had grocery stores, our own little drugstore, and we had a school up on the hill 2 blocks over.
Bill Friday's adolescent years coincided with the Great Depression.
All through my life, out of that experience, I've been very sensitive to people who were poor, did without. Not so much consciously, but it was just in me. Because I had been there, I had experienced it. We lost the land we were going to build our home on as a family. Painful. And you don't like to see people suffer. You don't like to see people hungry. But when you do, you don't forget it.
Seeds were planted during those Great Depression years that were to make Friday the leader he would become.
That was a part of my life that led me straight into the work that I've been so glad to have the chance to do in literacy and poverty and health movements that had a really deep meaning for me. And I'm grateful for it because I realized that if I could do a little something to help change there, then do it.
The Depression did not stop the Friday family from sending Bill and his siblings to college.
My father determined, I'm sure early in his life, that none of his children would fail to get a chance to go to college, whatever it took. And he literally drove himself to see that that was done. All of us got at least 2 degrees in college.
Friday earned a scholarship to Wake Forest.
The experience of being at Wake Forest in those years didn't have 1,000 students. And I had a wonderful group of classmates. Jesse Helms was in our class. We all started together there. People like Joseph Bryant, Joe Branch, who became Chief Justice. Lots of wonderful lawyers in the state. It was one of those relationships where you knew everybody, they knew you.
William Friday transferred from Wake Forest to North Carolina State after 1 year. He studied textiles officially.
Well, I got involved with a lot of things at NC State. I had worked for the Gastonia Gazette as a sports reporter and wound up being sports editor, the technician my senior year. But I really did something that was not good, but I drifted away from my academic interest in it. I made a career of extracurricular almost before I was through. And but that made it easy, but in getting a job, because that's what those days, that's what people really look for.
Fortune would have it that Friday would graduate college just as the U.S. military was building up to fight World War II. All 4 Friday brothers would serve military duty.
Dave was in the Army in Germany. Rudd was in the Judge Advocate Corps, and John was in the Merchant Marine in Australia, and I was in the Navy. And those 4 years, we just kept in touch by letter, but that was about it. And then we all came back, finished college. We got very busy in our careers. And one of the great aches of my life is that I lost all 3 of those brothers in a period of very short interval of time due to illnesses. And it's been a huge void in my life because they meant so much to me. But I got busy with my own life, and I didn't get to know my brothers the way I would like to have.
Like living through the Great Depression, military service would influence Bill Friday in the decades to come.
Military service, there's no more dramatic turn in your life than doing that. The discipline of it in those days, the rigidity of it, a whole new system of command and respect, and whether it's ordered by law or by rank, you knew what you had to do.
Fortune would also see to it that Bill Friday would marry Ida Howell before answering to Uncle Sam. That World War lasted some 4 years, but that Friday marriage would last 70.
In the Methodist Church over in Raleigh, the pastor was a man named Jerome. It's a little, beautiful little church. It was the only place we could find. But I did something I shouldn't have done then. I put on my military uniform. I hadn't taken the oath of office, but I didn't know that was illegal. But there I was, and that was the beginning of it, our happy life.
The immediate post-war years were spent by the Fridays preparing for their civilian lives and careers. Bill Friday entered law school.
Well, you get into an experience like that war put us all in. You were thrown with so many different people from all over everywhere, not only the United States, but foreign countries, and you realize how much you need all the education you can get. And I had always had an inkling to want to study law. And my wife, Ida, who wanted to get more work herself, so we agreed we'd come back here, and she got into public health, and I got into the law, and I had a great experience. I came back here with Terry Sanford and Bill Aycock and John Jordan and William Dees and Dixon Phillips, that legendary group of people. And we all went straight through and stuck together ever since.
Friday took a job at North Carolina State, expecting it to be temporary while his wife finished up her college studies. He would leave NC State, but go to UNC Chapel Hill, and from there build lifelong relationships with state leaders like former Governor Terry Sanford, Jim Graham, and his mentor, former UNC Chapel Hill President and U.S. Senator Frank Porter Graham.
And this idea that Southern institutions are second-rate by nature or geography or something is a myth. Mm-hmm. And there's just as much striving for excellence here with the money we have as there is anywhere. Sometimes I think more.
The interesting
on
thing,
the comparative basis of
Frank Graham
funds.
Was to Terry Sanford and that generation and to my generation the man who sort of focused on the needs of activity as citizens. He was a great believer in public service. Give back something of yourself. We can't all be takers. And he was a man who had a strong sense of human values, of the purposes of being and what you do with your life. Be well qualified, earn a living, do a good job as a businessman, but do something more.
Bill Friday's influence would grow on the Chapel Hill campus during the years when state universities would eventually consolidate into one unified system. Ida Friday's influence would grow in the community as well, as would her importance to Bill as he emerged into a university leader.
There's one thing that Bill and I have done for each other, and that is we felt like that your best friend wouldn't tell you. So when I have felt that he was wrong or that he needed to sharpen up on his thoughts or things he was saying, I've told him, I hope in the kindest of way, and he has done that same thing for me.
Friday would serve under UNC Chapel Hill President Gordon Gray in the late 40s through mid-1950s.
How would you compare Frank Graham's style to that of his successor, Gordon Gray? And how did your job change when you went from working for Graham to working for Gray?
I did not know Mr. Gray when I first went to work with him. I got to know him very, very well. He's the most unappreciated public servant I think the state's had. He really gave it everything he had. He was in that office at 7:45. He stayed there till 6. And on weekends, he was either going to Washington for some service that the president had asked him to do. He had not been in a university, and that made it difficult because it's not a corporation. It's not the military. It's a collection of intellectuals and academic people who are wonderful people who have a different mission to perform and a different gift to make.
It would groom him to become the new University of North Carolina System President in 1956.
it was one of those strokes of good luck, I guess, if you want to put it that way. But when I came here and got down into that office, Mr. Gray was the president, Billy Carmichael was the vice president. We had a chief finance officer, and Dr. Perks was the academic officer, and I became Mr. Gray's assistant. Well, in one interval of time there, Mr. Gray went back to Washington, Dr. Perks took over the Board of Higher Education, Billy Carmichael had already been acting president once before, so there was no one left. And they gave me the opportunity, and that was in 1956.
Here is what Time magazine said about you. This is Time magazine, November 5th, 1956. You are 36 years old. You have been made president of the University of North Carolina. One of the surest ways, Time says, a board of trustees can anger the faculty of a college or a university is to pick a president, a man who has never, A, been a scholar, 2, earned a PhD, or 3, taught a class. Last week, the trustees of the Consolidated University of North Carolina picked just such a man, but not a single professor voiced even a hint of objection. One professor noted, he is the kind of person who can humanize the scientist and simonize the humanist. How did you feel about assuming this responsibility, even though you had seen it up close?
It's a terrifying experience, Charlie. You know, all of a sudden, there you are. I had been there sitting in that office for 5 years, and Gordon Gray was the kind of man that gave you every opportunity to perform. He tested you all the time, gone a lot. But let me tell you, the minute you sit down in that chair, the fact that you have so much to do with things in the judgmental sense, that it's over if you make the decision, and affect the lives of so many people, it sobers you. It really does.
Friday considered the university campuses as one large family.
I got all of the family together. All the 16 chancellors and my principal colleagues and I would meet once a month. And we had a standing arrangement which said, I will never surprise you with anything going to the board. You don't surprise us, and we'll work in harmony as best we can. Now, we'll agree to disagree when we have to, but we all understood we had to make it work because the state wanted it to work. It was the only way we could guarantee access to higher education in a way that the state deserved to have.
The late 1950s were a time of strengthening this new university system's bonds. The 1960s would present different challenges. President Friday canceled the popular Dixie Classic basketball tournament following a point-shaving controversy.
The immediate fact that led to it was that the district attorney of Wake County came to see me and told me that the lives of athletes had been threatened the night before by gamblers who wanted their money back. It didn't work out the way that they were saying.
I want to be clear
Chancellor.
here. These students were approached by gamblers who they had made a deal with. These student athletes had made a deal with, a point-shaving deal.
That's exactly the idea.
And when the
Paid
point-shaving
money.
didn't come off the way it was supposed to, the gamblers threatened their
very
lives.
existence, they wanted their money back. That's what the solicitor said to me. I said, why are you talking with me? You're the law enforcement officer. Well, his answer was, I don't have enough of the evidence to deal with this. But I asked Bill Aycock, who was then Chancellor at Chapel Hill, and John Caldwell at NC State, who were the primary hosts of this tournament, let's sit down together and see what we've got. We talked for 3 days.
He would trumpet college academics over collegiate athletics the rest of his life.
Sport is a part of our culture. It's very important to every American. I enjoy it as much as anybody. But you have to play within certain rules, and you have to live within certain prescribed conditions. And I found people that I've worked with, like Les Robinson or Dean Smith, all these people want to do the right thing. It's the fan that's got to stop and think now, what are we doing to this? Because we demand too much these days, we pressure too much, and you can kill the goose that lays the egg.
North Carolina's legislature enacted the Speaker Ban Law on June 26, 1963. This law prevented known or suspected communists from speaking on any UNC system campus. It also prevented any speeches deemed to be inciting the overthrow of the U.S. government. the speaker ban law, and the communist threat were heavily debated on campuses in Raleigh and on television.
Do you have any feeling as to which was more effective as far as the students were concerned?
Yes, I personally feel that no communist should be given state-supported facilities to speak on the campus. I base that largely on the reaction I got from the communists. The communists concluded that their presentation on the campus was much more effective.
The public is understandably emotional on this type of thing in North Carolina and elsewhere. But we must try to be calm and practical in these trying times. Our state and our institutions have seen such times before, have met such problems before, and have solved them.
When the speaker ban law came to the state under the shadow that it entered into, suspension of rules, no hearings, this kind of thing, there was no doubt in my mind what I had to do. I got in the car, went straight to Raleigh, and we came within 3 votes of reversing that thing overnight. But you know when the university's heart is being challenged, and it was that day, because if you don't have the right of free exchange of ideas, then you're really not functioning as a university.
Then the university system faced the issue of segregation.
Technically, UNC desegregated in 1955, some 15 years before you were first contacted by the Federal Office of Civil Rights. That's a division within HEW, Health, Education, and Welfare. That 1955 desegregation was the result of the Frazier case. Was there tension on the campus at that time, or did it happen basically without incident?
Well, it happened without incident, but it was always tension. Because you're a reflection of the world you're in, and all through the South, it was such a mixture of emotional feelings. Some people, it was resentment, some it was, well, let's use the police, let's do this, let's do that. And there were not many times during those days, John, where you could be at perfect peace in your mind about what was going on about you. Your job was to keep order as best you could as you move forward.
What was the toughest call for you during 30 years? Because there was the Dixie Classic, there was the speaker ban, there was desegregation, there was radicalism on the campus, there was student protest and student involvement, a whole series of issues. What was the toughest?
Now, in all of those that you just enumerated, there's a fundamental principle. The university must be free if it's going to live and flourish and be strong in what it's doing. That's the tough call about it, explaining to people why something as popular as the Dixie Classic had to be suspended, or saying why you want to have a communist speak on the campus, or, and you can just take all of them in that order of things. There's no one tougher call. There have been plenty of very difficult calls, and the one, I guess, that vexed us the most was that 10 years of debate with the federal government, 3 presidents, 8 secretaries, over
of HEW and Justice.
Over how you let a university govern itself. It was never a racial question. It was the right of a university to say what will be taught, where it will be taught, and by whom.
Those controversies were headline-grabbing, but the creation of public television in North Carolina would open a door for Bill Friday to interview people. His on-air approach would prove to be like his presidential approach, personal.
First, you have to be a listener. Very important. When you come into the office, whatever's on your mind is the most important thing that you're thinking about that day. Right. If I'm cavalier with you, then you don't think I am paying attention. I'm not doing what I should do. Listen. 2, you have to study a lot. You have to read tons of material. 3, you develop a sense about principle.
Size is increasing and quality is not going down.
That's right. That's the #1 watchword.
Dr. Friday listened patiently, even when television cameras were rolling and a statewide interview with Frank Porter Graham was interrupted by these ladies. This is one of Dr. Friday's favorite clips from 50 years on the air.
Glad to see you.
Good morning. Very nice to see you. Hello, Miss Bessie.
Glad to see you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Miss Bessie Cheatham. Well, we're here doing a little television program.
Oh,
it's all right. Come right in. Come right in.
Come on, they're doing a telephone. I made a speech in Charlotte.
Now, Miss Bessie, you ought to sit down. I ought not to be sitting here when you're standing.
She can't sit down. She's got to travel.
All right. Well, we'll
You
see
graduated in 1900,
That's right.
and you're still going strong.
I did too.
North Carolina People was William Friday's signature contribution to North Carolina Airways as a personality.
Good evening. As you can see from looking at this chair, there's no one sitting here for this particular performance of North Carolina People.
It first aired in 1970, with Dr. Friday taping his final episode in July 2012.
And my great advantage, because I get to sit and listen to people talk about what they've done, and I'll tell you, this state is so rich with a resource like that. You know, you can sit and talk with Andy Griffith one day, Billy Graham the next.
One of the things that troubles me is sometimes in people in enumerating our problems, and we do have problems, almost create a notion of despair. But we've got a lot to be happy and proud of and proud about in North Carolina. And what would you say to us all now as you look ahead?
Oh, I say you must keep the optimism and the courage. I'm not the least bit despaired. I do not want to go back to the old days. I remember the old days.
President Friday retired as UNC System President in 1986. It seemed everyone called him Dr. or President Friday, but Mr. Friday had handed back all the titles.
Because you are President Friday and you are Dr. Friday. Am I correct in understanding that you prefer to be called Mr. Friday?
That's right, John. I didn't earn the doctor. That's honorary, and I finished my term as president of the university, so I'm just like everybody else. Mr. fits better.
The program is North Carolina People, and in this case, the host of the program is the guest.
Mr. Friday would answer the question sometimes. On special occasions, as North Carolina People would enter a new decade, he would often reflect on his 30-year university system presidency and why he resisted efforts to seek other offices and positions.
If you really understand what being president of a university is, it's the #1 position in any state, because you can do so many things for so many people for a longer period of time, you see. You're not running as governor, you're not going in the legislature every 2 years or Congress or so on. Yeah. You get to lay out a plan of action with a lot of wonderful people, bright, talented faculty members and staff people who know what they're doing. But most of all, Charlie, are committed to the state itself.
But even Bill Friday says he didn't do everything he thought he should have done as North Carolina's higher education leader.
In hindsight, I would have worked much harder with the public school problem. I don't mean it, I'm saying that it was more dramatic than people read it to be. I just would have felt better about doing more to bring the university to the hands of the public schools. I would have worked harder at student aid accessibility. Most people don't understand today that there are lots of very poor people in this country. Lots of them here. We're still an agricultural state, primarily. And I know from my own experience that somebody held out that opportunity for me, and I'm always going to be on the side of low tuition, Charlie. You know, if you let me get in here, I can take care of myself once I get here. But if you raise it so high, it's prohibitive, then my economic ability has more to do with my getting here than my educational competence or my preparation. And that's the wrong policy for the state to have, any state.
Dr. William Friday is someone many, many people know today, and many, many more will discuss in future generations. He raised a family and a 16-campus university system from birth to maturity. He nurtured a 70-year marriage and a 40-year tenure as UNC-TV's on-air statesman. He leaves his wife, Ida, for now. Bill Friday died on a Friday.
University Day had arrived.
It was also University Day in North Carolina.
Of course, I hope I've made Bill Friday happy.
Well, I have a quote from him from that blind date that you had 44 years ago. But for Ida, I know my life would not have been as rich and rewarding as it has been. We've been blessed with wonderful children, and the love and joy we have shared as a family over these 43 years have made our lives together an exciting adventure. Thank you, Bill Friday, and thank you, Ida Friday.
The University of North Carolina will hold a public memorial service for Mr. William Friday this Wednesday at 10 a.m. in Memorial Hall on the campus of UNC Chapel Hill. UNC-TV will carry this service live, as well as live stream it on our website, UNC-TV.org. We will air a repeat broadcast of the service Wednesday evening from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. on UNC-TV.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.